Welcome to Night Talk.
Hi everybody, welcome to Night Talk. Tonight I want to talk to you about spirit possession. I'm not an expert in it, I just go by what I learn like everybody else does. I have about 20 minutes worth of videos I'm going to show you. I have watched several videos, and out of the several, I must have watched about 15 videos, and I only picked two. One of the videos is called Spirit Possession Explained by Hans Wilhelm, and it's about 10 minutes long. It's called Paranormal Phenomena Attached Entities. And there's going to be another one from Dr. Rita Lewis. It's called Paranormal Phenomena Attached Entities, the Bad Kids of the Spirit World. And it's about 14 minutes long. First, I want to tell you about Hans Wilhelm. This is why I'm such a big fan of his. Hans is a German-American writer, author, illustrator, and artist. He has written and it's illustrated over 200 books. His books have been translated into more than 30 different languages, and they have won numerous international awards. So let me play you that video by Hans.
Hi, I'm Hans Wilhelm. And in this video, in the Life Explained series, I'm going to talk about earthbound spirits, also called lost souls, who can possess human beings and can make their lives miserable. I've talked about them already in my video on Death and Dying Part 2, but today I'm going to go into this subject a little bit deeper. And if you have never heard about this, you are going to hear some very interesting information. Spirit possession is as old as mankind. In all cultures, we find descriptions and stories of spirit possessions, and most famously the many references in the Bible of Jesus helping people by driving out unclean spirits. I think there are over 24 references. Who are these possessive souls and why are they so dangerous? The majority of them are people who have died a physical death and cannot understand or accept that they have died a physical death and that they are now in a spiritual body. Death is a very simple transition from the physical world into the spiritual world. It's just like going from one room into another room or traveling from one country to another country. And when we die, we will continue living, but not in a physical body, but in a spiritual body. And this has nothing to do with religious beliefs. This is how Mother Nature has been operating for millions of years. However, there are people who are totally convinced that when they die there is total extinction, there is no such thing like afterlife. And when these people die, they simply cannot accept the fact that they have died a physical death and that they are still alive. It doesn't fit their belief system. And the same applies to very orthodox or religious dogmatic belief who cannot accept the reality of death. You see, we perceive our reality according to our beliefs. These souls with these strong beliefs are totally confused when they die, and we call them lost souls. And they are not open to any teachings or any guidance by light beings who are usually there to welcome them. Let me illustrate this with a typical example.
Let's say we have here a young man who likes to drink and party. He, being young and thinking himself as indestructible, of course, does not think about death or even believes in life after death. Young people usually don't do that. Now he is taking a few drinks after work, and on his way home he, boom, crashes his car. He dies instantly, and his soul is projected out of his body. He now has a spiritual body that feels as real to him as his old physical body. His mental and emotional faculties are also very much unchanged. And as he does not believe that life exists after the physical death, he thinks he is just lucky to have survived the crash. At the moment of His physical death, light beings from the spiritual world as well as maybe some loved ones who have died before arrive to greet and guide him to the spiritual worlds. But even if he sees them, he will ignore them or run away from them because they do not fit into his belief system. He may think they are just ghosts. But the car crash may have given him a little shock, and his first thought is, "I need another drink." This thought alone is enough to bring him to the nearest bar or drinking spot. Initially he will be surprised and maybe even angry that everybody seems to ignore him because he is invisible to them. But he soon figures out that he can satisfy his alcohol addiction via another human with similar weakness or addiction, meaning a similar soul vibration. This is in complete accordance with the law like attracts like. And here we have such a person sitting at the bar. This earthbound soul now lurches onto his guest and enters his aura and his body, and then enjoys his drink through him. He now has become a possessing soul. Writers have romanticized such souls as vampires, but there's nothing romantic about vampires. Quite contrary, they are dangerous and often malicious. And from now on, this lost soul will possess, influence, and control this human being via thoughts. This lost soul will now keep projecting thoughts and desires of drinking, eating, or drugs, or watching more porn, or whatever it is that turns the possessing soul on. And the human being is convinced that these are his own thoughts, but they are not. They are from the possessing soul. And here is another devastating fact. It is rare for a person to be influenced or possessed by only one lost soul. Other lost souls who share the addiction will attach themselves to, and very soon there are many more. Like bunches of grapes are they hanging on this one mortal being and follow him around wherever he goes and influence him like a puppet. They are like sponges, draining the energy of their host. Spirits don't just enter because of their addiction, but also sometimes for revenge, and they can even drive their victim to suicide, and in some cases to murder. But there has to be some kind of corresponding emotional pattern in the host to make that happen. Besides bars or places of addictions, another place where souls can easily enter another human body is a hospital. Here again, we are many souls that have recently died but are not willing to accept their new situation. They are roaming around the hospital and find another patient or a visitor with similar vibration and slip into their aura and body, where they now continue living through them. Talking about hospitals, another danger of spirit transplants happens during organ transplants. I've made a special short video about that topic. These lost spirits are also known to enter babies or small children. And in such cases, it is the similar vibrating emotional imbalance of one of the parents of the child or baby that attracts such a vagabonding soul. And besides hospitals, graveyards, funeral homes, prisons, and mental institutions, there is one other easy entry for such souls. And that are people who are consciously inviting spirits to speak or express themselves through them. And I'm speaking of seances, Ouija boards, planchettes, automatic writings, channelings, and so on. All these activities invite souls, but there is no guarantee that only good or highly evolved souls will be attracted. No, lost souls and even devious souls love these invitations too, and are happy to move in and stay with anybody who invites them.
Now let us look at some symptoms or effects that may indicate the possibility of a possessive spirit. It is very often a sudden change of character or well-being, or an erratic and impulsive behavior, like extreme tiredness, exhaustion, and depression. Of course, they can have many causes, but very often possessing spirits are draining the energy of their hosts. Remember, they are the classic vampires. Sudden severe mental problems. These lost spirits are master in manipulating and influencing the mind of their host. Think of cases of schizophrenia or the violent anger outbursts in mental homes or prisons. Drug and alcohol addictions. These are some of the most devastating symptoms of spirit possession. This also can include smoking addictions. Weight and obesity problems. These spirits bring their craving with them and make sure that any attempts to diet will be doomed. Relationship problems. No wonder, because couples are suddenly having a ménage à trois without their knowledge or consent, and this causes problems. Sexual problems. Sexual confusion and addictions can be a result of possessing spirits. If a male spirit enters a woman or the other way around, we are having some major problems, not only in the bedroom. In some cases it can lead to homosexuality, but very often transvestites or transgenders can be caused by a powerful possessing spirit of the opposite sex. Let me be clear, not for one moment do I wish to imply that these conditions are always caused by possessive spirits. Far from it. But in her book, The Unquiet Dead, Dr. Edith Fiore claims that 70% of her patients actually had a possessing spirit. Anybody who is living in a vibratory similar world of thoughts, feelings, emotions and desires as these possessing spirits can become their victim. And one way of getting rid of them is to love and honor oneself and work oneself throughout the addictions and the emotional injuries. But for many it is too late to have been a puppet of these invaders for a long time. There are other techniques for them to free and dislodge these possessing spirits. And for that, I would like to refer to the many books written by medical doctors and experts in this field. For instance, the book The Unquiet Dead by Dr. Edith Fiore gives clear instructions of how to dislodge or depossess a spirit. The same can be found in other important books written by medical doctors on this subject, and here are some of them. Freeing Captives by Dr. Louise Island Frey, MD. Healing Lost Souls by Dr. William Baldwin. Entity Possessions by Dr. Samuel Sagan, MD. And the all-time classic 30 Years Among the Dead by Dr. Carl Wickland, MD. And I also like to mention the book Astral Horror, written by Gabriele. All these books confirm that spirit possession is a spiritual phenomenon which is fully backed by medical research and reports. And therefore I recommend these books to anybody who wants to know more about it. If you know anybody who may benefit from knowing about this video, please share it with them. It has been an honor and pleasure to be with you again. Thank you.
Okay. This Hans guy, he does a lot of research on a lot of things, and he is an expert in a lot of them. The next video I'm going to show you is by Dr. Rita Lewis, and it's highly informative. Dr. Rita Lewis is a best-selling author as well, medical intuitive, host of the Just Energy radio show, and the founder of the Institute of Applied Energetics. In this video, Dr. Lewis explores the paranormal concept of attached entities, including the true motives of these ghost-like corporal beings. She describes why entities attach to us, the vehicle for their attachment, and the mechanism through which they are able to influence us and our lives. So I'm going to play her right now, and I'll get right back to you.
For the last 20 years, best-selling author Dr. Rita Louise has been shedding light on some of the world's most shrouded mysteries. A leading and respected medical intuitive, she is known for getting to the root of any problem. Today, Dr. Rita is going to share her discoveries with you. And now, where science and spirit meet.
Attached entities are the disembodied spirits of people who have died and not found a way to move on. They are like a ghost who has taken up residence in your home. What separates an attached entity from its closely related cousin, a ghost, is that the attached entity take their interaction with us one step further. They single out an individual to haunt and then penetrate their auric field. The aura is the electromagnetic field around the body. It is our personal space. It can be likened to a border that marks where we end and another begins. It is what energetically separates us from others and supports our ability to remain clear about who we are, what we think, and how we feel. When an entity repeatedly penetrates our aura, it is classified as being attached. Angels, spirit guides, and ghosts do not enter the auric field. Even if a ghostly presence is mean, vindictive, and spiteful, he or she still honors us in our personal space. Attached entities, on the other hand, seem unconcerned with our boundaries and can routinely and regularly enter our energy field. All attached entities are parasites. Their vibration is low. They are typically ego-driven, emotionally negative, and out for themselves. Their motives can be summarized into two words: control and manipulation. Their endeavor is to create a symbiotic relationship with us, with the cards stacked in their favor. When an entity is in our auric field, we experience their thoughts, feelings, and emotions as if they were our own. The sufferer often assumes that they are responsible for creating the ongoing patterns of negative thoughts and undesired emotional responses. They are left believing, "This is who I am." Dealing with an attached entity can be like interacting with the power and influence of religious, social, or political cults. The beliefs elicited by a cult may seem wonderful at first, but the reality is all they want from you is your obedience. They endear themselves to you by telling you how happy or successful you will be if you follow their guidance. Once their hold over you is complete, they will use coercion, guilt, character assassination, and even intimidation to keep you from leaving their influence. They will hide the truth of who they really are and what they actually want. They will only make their hidden agenda known when they think you are ready. Entities do the same thing. They will lull you in with their promise of a better life, protection, strength, and security. Once inside and firmly attached, the game changes. What was once promised goes by the wayside. The good, positive, and uplifting thoughts they once provided change to negative ones. These negative tapes can keep playing over again in our minds, keeping us in an altered emotional space. The deeper, darker, and lower you go, and the longer they can keep you in this emotional place, the happier they are. Relief can only be experienced if we move the entity out of our space and reestablish our connection with ourselves. What many do not realize is the fact that entities, like a cult, attach to us because we open the door and invite them in. In most cases, it's accidental and unintentional on our parts. Entities attach to us for a number of different reasons. The most common and long-standing of these relationships occur between an entity and a child, especially with children who were sexually molested or experienced long-term physical or emotional abuse. It is common for these children to feel alone and abandoned by those who are supposed to take care of them, protect them, and defend them. In their hurt, pain, and solitude, they call out for someone to help. They project a wave of emotional energy into the universe like an SOS or a beacon of light. They ask, hope, and pray for someone to come and save them. The depth and strength of emotional energy they project is so intense, their wishes do get answered. By whom? By the entity, of course. The child, as a way of coping with the dysfunctional situation, disassociates from his or her body. This leaves room for the entity to step in. As the entity exerts its control, in a weird way, the child receives a reprieve from the painful circumstances they're experiencing. They might take on a "I don't care" or "you can't hurt me" attitude. This helps the child create a boundary around the tender and gentler parts being violated. They may totally disassociate from their bodies, leaving the entity fully in charge. This can cause the child to move forward in life without any memories of the offending behaviors they experienced. In the beginning, the entity may have helped the child cope with what was going on around them. As the child grows and matures, the reactions offered by the entity to a potential threat may no longer serve them. They may begin to see their overstated response to a situation as being inappropriate and may want to embrace a new way of interacting with the world. Thus comes the rub. Attached entities in the majority of occurrences do not occupy the auric field all the time. Yet in times of trouble, the child, or adult child, call out to their attached entities through their emotional space. It is believed that each emotion carries its own unique vibration or frequency. Entities are able to sense emotional energy. If a specific emotion is experienced by the affected child, such as one that triggered a past hurt, this will open the door for the entity to exert its control over the individual. It is as if we have an internal bat phone with one big button on it, or with a direct dial to our entity. Once the button is pushed, the entity can gain access to the auric field. Once back in our aura, it will begin influencing us again. The individual, in turn, will experience a response that, while it may be out of proportion, will seem familiar, safe, and consistent. Addictions, regardless of the kind, are another common reason why entities attach. Addictions can include drugs, alcohol, sex, gambling, and even interacting with computers. The altered states these behaviors create within the body can be a calling card inviting entities into the auric field. When we are intoxicated, for example, we naturally put down our boundaries and drop our guard. This makes it easy for an entity to enter into our auric field. These entities often want to live vicariously through us. They are looking for one more drink, one more high, or another encounter. We often hear stories of people with drastic personality changes when they are under the influence. When an entity is involved, a nice, clean-cut, calm, and humble man may be instantly transformed into something unrecognizable, a veritable Jekyll and Hyde. Some individuals after a binge report they just weren't themselves and end up regretting their inappropriate actions. Others have no recollection of what they did or where they were while under an entity's influence. Once the drugs or alcohol wear off, it is difficult for the entity to enter their aura. It is in the entity's best interest to keep them addicted. It will work hard at keeping the object of their compulsion on the victim's mind. The individual may think, or perhaps obsess, about their next opportunity to indulge. They are reminded just how good it felt, how their troubles will go away, or how it really doesn't matter anyway. So go ahead, just have a little one for old time's sake. It'll be okay. Another way in which an entity can attach is through tools of divination. It is only in recent years that occult principles have been made available to the general public. Formerly, those who explored its secrets were highly trained in their concept and use. Warnings and precautions have always surrounded its use, and for a good reason. When dabbling with these seemingly benign tools, techniques, and methodologies, a door can be opened, a welcome mat can be put out, and a sign can be posted inviting an entity into our personal space. Ouija boards, for example, fall into this category. Calling spirits to you is the sole purpose of the Ouija board. Popularized in the mid-19th century, Ouija boards are said to allow the user to receive messages from the other side. Strong warnings exist regarding the use of a Ouija board, yet individuals still play with them hoping to receive divine guidance from the spirit world. If done without precaution, you never know what might arrive. This includes negative entities who have an agenda of their own. The use of techniques such as automatic writing or even just calling in our angels and spirit guides can also leave us vulnerable to an entity attachment. It has become popular for people to ask their guides and angels for support and guidance. They are not typically specific about who they are summoning. When their guide does appear, they do not evaluate its energy. They are just happy someone has shown up in response to their request. If, however, you call upon your guides when you are scared, depressed, frightened, or sad, you can accidentally attract a negative entity that can ultimately cause more harm than good. Tales of individuals who end up with an entity attachment through this method are essentially all the same. At first, the communications, insights, and advice the individual receives appear divinely inspired. The good feeling the entity provides tricks the individual into trusting it. Mistakenly, they let down their guard and invite the entity in even further. As time goes on, the entity's messages start to change. What was once helpful, uplifting, and useful now become communications that can provoke fear, intimidation, and control. Some, since they believe this communication is coming from a higher source, may act upon the messages they receive without discriminating their pros and cons. Entity attachment is a very real phenomenon. Thankfully, it is possible to break the agreement between the entity and the individual. Sometimes this process is simple. At other times, the entity is so embedded into our consciousness that removal, although not impossible, can be challenging. Freeing oneself from the grasp and control of an attached entity can be life-altering. It can open the door to a whole new outlook on life and help to create a future that in the past could only have been dreamed of.
Well, I hope that was pretty informative for you. I thought it was. I knew some things about possession that she mentioned, but there was a hell of a lot more that I didn't know. Right now, I'm going to talk to you about the symptoms of spirit possession. I'm going to talk about the psychiatric and psychological changes. Therefore, you must be cautious when you look at these signs of possession. Also, take into account the possibility of drug use when you're looking at these signs and symptoms. All the symptoms can be a cry for help or signal the beginning of drug use or mental illness. When these are the only signs present, seek psychological counseling first before giving any thought to the possibility of a possession. Many of these changes are normal, especially when dealing with teenagers. Don't automatically think of possession unless you have some reason to believe they are vulnerable to possession. For example, if your teenager is performing rituals or dabbling in the occult, then you start to notice personality changes. However, the likelihood is actually a natural problem. It's puberty. Teenagers, when they hit the age of puberty, they go nuts. You know what I mean? I raised 4 kids, and when they got into their teen years, they just drove me nuts. Especially girls, they get really emotional. No slam on girls, but they get really emotional. There are many other indications of possessions, Look for some of those signs before you give credence to the idea of possession. In addition, never mention to someone undergoing personality changes that they might be possessed. You can plant a real dangerous seed by doing that. There's two categories. The first category, symptoms of possession. Number 1, look for changes in personality. This is usually seen when the person is sociable and suddenly becomes extremely quiet. Number 2, someone who is normally very active suddenly becomes isolated. Number 3, look for changes in sleep patterns. Sometimes a possessed person will stay up all night long and sleep all day and switch around. Their hours of sleep is just all blown out of proportion, and a normal individual couldn't cope with that type of sleep pattern. I hope you understand what I'm saying. Look for a sudden weight loss or gain. Look for changes in attitude or behavior, usually becoming hostile. Someone who begins cursing a lot when that is out of their character for them to do so. Notice, I am tongue-tied today because I am so dang tired. Notice if they suddenly have a dislike for religious objects, like a person that normally goes to church but suddenly despises the thought of it. Look for evidence of self-mutilation, cutting, scratching, harming themselves in any way, basically. Look for changes in the way a person dresses. Okay. I've known people, I'm going to say dressed normally, wearing a pair of jeans, a t-shirt, a nice shirt, whatever, just your everyday Joe. Then the next time I saw them, they were dressed like wearing like a gothic, like a goth, wearing all black with earrings hanging out of their ears and nose and mouth and everything else. Look for changes like that. Observe their hygiene and look for changes. Okay, that's pretty well self-explanatory. Clean-cut individual all of a sudden becomes like something off the street corner, hadn't taken a bath in a week and, just totally messed up. Number 11. Look for evidence of occult materials in their living space. Ouija boards are the most common. Excuse me. Number 12. Look for destructiveness on part of the person, especially if the destruction is of religious objects. Number 13. They may become abusive and threatening to people and or animals around them. They may become violent, often attempt to hurt animals. Number 15, the person may experience several nightmares or night terrors. 16, they may perform acts of self-humiliation, such as urinating on themselves, etc. Number 17, they may become sexually preoccupied by exposing themselves to others. That don't sound good at all. Well, it depends on how you look at it. Number 18, take note of what appears to be a different personality or multiple personalities, kind of like Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. Number 19, look for unusual changes in their diets. Foods that were once favorites of theirs all of a sudden become nasty and they don't want nothing to do with them. Number 20, take notice if they seem to have blackouts in their memory. Okay, I'm 63 years old. I have blackouts in my memory. That don't mean I'm possessed. That was everything out of Category 1. Category 2, physical changes affecting the person. Some of this stuff is pretty weird in here. Number 1, the person involved may go for long periods of time without blinking their eyes. It can also indicate a neurological condition. Number 2, the person may appear catatonic. Can also be a sign of mental illness. The person speaks a language they couldn't possibly know, or speaks in unusual accents. Like if your neighbor Joe, you talk to him every day, and he sounds like a regular American grown up in the suburbs and, all there and everything. And the next day you talk to him and he sounds like a Frenchman or a German. Number 4, a person speaks in tongues. I don't understand that. I don't understand what tongues means. So if somebody can explain that to me, I would be just thrilled to death. Number 5, the person will become completely rigid, where they can't be moved at all, even by multiple people. Number 6, look for changes in their eyes. They may turn mostly black, kind of shark-like, just totally black. Number 7, look for obvious changes in their physical features, like their eyes become weird, wide open and distorted, and their ears become weird. And their face, I don't know how to explain this, but their face becomes distorted. Okay. Number 8, the person may possess inhumane strength. Joe can pick up 250 pounds, no problem. The next day he picks up 800 pounds. That's the problem. Number 9, the person may exhibit precognition. That is the ability to predict the future. Number 10, the person displays retrocognition. That is the ability to know about the past events they couldn't know anything about. Say, for instance, you went over to Aunt Betty's house last weekend for dinner and you had a great time, and you talked to your neighbor Joe the next day, and Joe says, well, how'd the dinner go at your Aunt Betty's? Well, how the hell did he know about the dinner? You didn't tell him. Nobody told him, but he knew about it. That's kind of like an example. Number 11, the person may be able to know something about a person they have no idea, never met them. Number 12, their voice may change. It may go from high to low to guttural. Number 13, they may be able to tell you what you are thinking. That would freak me out. I would really blow my mind, especially if I was young again. Boy, my thoughts back then when I was a teenager, you don't talk about them in public. Number 14, they move in some unusual way. For example, they may seem to glide instead of walk. Number 15, writing or symbols may appear on their body in the form of welts or scratches. Look especially in areas they couldn't reach. Number 16, they may levitate. I'll tell you what, if somebody levitated in front of me, I think I'd freak out. Number 17, eye color changes. If they got brown eyes and all of a sudden they turn green or blue, or they got blue eyes and they change brown all of a sudden, something's wrong. Number 18, there may be multiple voices coming from the person at the same time. You might be talking to Joe and he sounds like Joe, then all of a sudden he sounds like Nancy. Number 19, Take note if animals appear to be frightened of the person, especially if they are acting fearful when there are personality changes in the person. I had a friend when I was a kid. I'm not going to mention his name, but he was a nice guy, but I had this big Rottweiler. She was very protective of me. I mean, extremely protective. And he came over one day and I thought she was going to eat him. She did not like him at all. And when your dog acts like that, pay attention to your dog, because they can sense bad people. And I did, and I stayed away from him. Most of the symptoms can be related to medical or psychological conditions, but some of them fall outside of the realm of science. If you start to see a few items that I have mentioned, there may be a serious cause for concern. At this point, you must start to take items from the first and second category and match them up, combine them together. Obviously, some are more telling than others. You have to give weight to the values when you try to make a determination. Okay, that's pretty much so it, but I've got one more video that I ran across about 8:30 tonight that I thought was pretty interesting. It was a news article by CBS News, and it was called Possessed, the Modern Exorcism. A woman was possessed and went through an actual exorcism. And in this video, they're going to talk to a priest who's an actual exorcist. And he's going to tell you some pretty interesting things. So I'll play that, and then I'll tell you about the next feeds we're going to be doing, okay?
You're going to come back and see us.
The idea of the devil, evil incarnate, has irresistible symbolic force, and the character of Lucifer inhabits our greatest literature, from Paradise Lost to Faust. But what about the devil not as a symbol, but as an actual willful being, a fallen angel in Christian belief that can not only affect human events, but enter human bodies? Tonight we go inside the controversial and extraordinary rite of exorcism with my co-anchor Terry Moran for our series, Faith Matters.
It burns!
In Hollywood, exorcisms are full of spooky special effects and terrifying images. As in, most famously, the film, The Exorcist.
I command you to depart from the servant of God.
Emily, can you hear me?
Or there's the battle with the devil in the movie, The Exorcism of Emily Rose.
Demons exist, whether you believe in them or not.
But exorcism is more, much more than just fodder for horror flicks. It is one of the most dramatic, profoundly moving, and profoundly controversial of all religious practices.
Oh, no!
Leave.
No!
No! Leave now, I command you.
And in real life, this rare footage shows what actually happens in an exorcism.
Oh, don't let her go.
Stop! Stop it! Get her off me!
I would do things that I wouldn't necessarily do, but so intense that it was like I was almost a puppet.
Becky Parker is her name. She was possessed by demons, she firmly believes, and she has been saved, she affirms, by the love of God through the rite of exorcism.
I'm happy because I found God. I found how to win the spiritual battle I was in.
Tell me your name in the name of Jesus Christ.
A spiritual battle. That's what the experience of exorcism feels like to those who go through it.
Speak the truth. Speak the truth.
And those who perform it.
I do it because I think it's an incredibly profound opportunity to help in the healing ministry that this is fundamentally about. and in a ministry where people are suffering tremendously.
Father Gary Thomas is an exorcist, though he did not perform Becky Parker's exorcism. That priest preferred to remain anonymous.
This is Jesus.
But Father Gary was trained in Rome, and for the past several years, he's been the official exorcist of the Diocese of San Jose, California.
Father, is the devil real?
I do believe the devil is real. I've had occurrences and experiences in my life where I believe I've seen the devil. I've seen demons. But you don't see Satan in the same way that you and I are looking at each other.
There's plenty of evil in the world. God knoweth that, you might say. Plenty of cruelty, mayhem, and murder. But the devil?
Satan is a pure spirit. He's an angel who fell. Certainly when I've been involved in the ministry of exorcism and at times prayed with people who have had a demonic attachment, I have seen Satan.
I have never met a psychiatrist that came to the conclusion the person was possessed by a demon.
Darrell Ray speaks for the other side, the secular take on these matters, as a psychologist and atheist who thinks exorcism is not just a fantasy, but a dangerous one.
We're diagnosing diseases now with brain scans that we couldn't diagnose even 2 and 3 years ago. What will happen in 4 or 5 years? The brain is an incredibly complicated organ. But the fact that some priest using 12th century technology can cure somebody is absurd.
Faith versus doubt, the sacred versus the profane. That's the age-old conflict that exorcism crystallizes. And it's the conflict at the heart of the latest Hollywood take on the subject, the right.
The interesting thing about skeptics, atheists, is that they're always looking for proof, certainty. The question is, what on earth would we do if we found it?
Anthony Hopkins, in a bravura performance, plays an exorcist, Colin O'Donoghue, a young seminarian full of skepticism at the right.
That's not the devil. It's just a very, very sick girl. She doesn't need a priest. She needs a shrink.
The seminarian's character is loosely based on Father Gary Thomas and his experience training as an exorcist.
How do you know that someone is possessed by a demon rather than just someone who's under tremendous psychological strain?
There are specific signs. For example, if a person has an aversion to walking into a church and not being able to view a crucifix or an image of Christ. Another sign could very well be if a person possesses a competency in a language that they otherwise couldn't speak. They can take on a serpentine look and coil up in a very serpentine body language manner, and I've seen that happen.
I was shaking, I was screaming, I was different languages.
Becky Parker says she was possessed by as many as 8 demons over many, many years.
I know what they look like. I know how big they are. I know where they are in my body.
You feel they're still there?
No, they're gone.
She's triumphed over a tough life. She says she was a victim of abuse as a child, turned to decades of drug abuse, worked as a prostitute, dabbled in the occult. Then she met Barbara Ganji, a documentary filmmaker who was making a movie about exorcism for Paulist Productions, a Catholic movie house. ABC News has licensed her footage.
Becky was part of a landscape crew that I had never seen her before, never met her. She'd never been to my house. She came to my door, knocked on the door and said, "Could I use your bathroom?" And I said, "Sure."
I was working on the yard and I was sober, clean, and just doing what I could.
And when she stepped out, her eyes went dark, her face distorted, and she started snarling at me, and she said, in this very strange voice, "You don't know what you're messing with. We hate you."
I wasn't even thinking. And then I ended up on the floor right here and contorting and screaming.
It was the turning point of Becky's life. Barbara Ganji put her in contact with a local Catholic priest who said the prayers of deliverance over her while Barbara's cameras rolled.
Speak, I command you, in the name of Jesus.
What was it like to have the priest pray the prayers of deliverance over you?
I hated him. Like, I wanted to hurt him. It took everything for me not to. I was wanting to kick him and spit on him, and hurt him and get away from him.
In that process, do you remember feeling that there were demons being expelled? Do you remember feeling being liberated, delivered?
Yeah.
You remember that?
Yeah.
What was it like?
The first time it happened was the most intense. My body totally collapsed. I never felt that type of relaxation.
Are you there, Becky?
Yes.
What's her name?
And so she was delivered. Becky is drug-free, married, and writing a book on her journey now. Some would say she was saved from the devil. Others argue she was mentally broken and the priest put her life at risk.
People who are in that kind of condition are oftentimes potentially suicidal. And if they're not getting the proper treatment, they could kill themselves.
The Catholic Church requires outside medical and psychological examinations before exorcisms are approved by local bishops. Still, skepticism abounds.
Father, you know there are going to be plenty of people watching this who are going to look at you and listen to you and say you're a charlatan. How do you answer someone who says that?
To believe that there's a Satan is an act of faith, a leap of faith, in the same way that to say I can believe in God or I have a personal relationship with God is a leap of faith. In the same way when an atheist says, I really firmly cannot believe that God exists, that's also a leap of faith to believe in the denial of God.
Demons, Satan, and the very real suffering in so many human lives. Exorcisms have been part of human religion since time immemorial. And today, in this modern world, the rite is making a comeback.
Okay. I thought that was pretty interesting myself, so that's why I shared it with you guys. Let me get my microphone back over here. The thing about possession, when that atheist guy said that he didn't believe in it and stuff like that, and that priest did an exorcism of that woman, and now she's problem-free. Okay, you got the atheist saying that, you know, the person's nuts. And you got the priest saying, hey, you need help. You need an exorcism. And he does the exorcism, and the woman is normal again. And she didn't even have to go see a psychiatrist. Yeah, right. Okay. I'm a minister, so I'm a firm believer in God and everything else. So, but anyway, I'm going to get out of here. Let me tell you about our next feed. Our next feed is going to be about a house we investigated back in 2001. It was in Prague, Nebraska. This place was so haunted. We had a fire shortly after this investigation in our house, and I couldn't get much off the computer that was in the fire, but I got some of the stuff from the investigation, but at least I can tell you what happened there and everything else. Show you a few pictures. That's going to be on Thursday, March 11th at 9 p.m. Central Time. After that, on April 18th at 9 p.m., we're going to do common causes of a haunting. There's a lot of them, and some of them will surprise you. There are a total of about 35 common causes of a haunting. Phenomena that might indicate your house is haunted, or you have extreme poltergeist phenomena going on around you. So, I hope you guys enjoyed tonight's feed. You know, I'm sorry it took so long. It's almost an hour long. But, when I'm redoing our website, phantasmparanormal.com, phantasm-paranormal.com. I'm redoing the website, and I'm going to put up some of these feeds. And if you want to download the list of signs and symptoms of possession. I'll post them up there once I get done. I'll let you guys know when the page is all done. But some of these feeds about some of the places that we investigated, those are also going to be on the website as well. So I hope you guys tell people about us, and I hope more people join us. So you guys have a great night, and thanks for coming, okay?
You're going to come back and see us, aren't you? You better be. We need you. We gotta have you. We depend on you. Come on back and see us. The feed has ended.